Good morning and welcome to my channel. My name is Christina and I like to color. Today I'm going to try doing a tutorial on the color along with me, just explaining some of the things why I'm doing what I'm doing. Now, this first bit is just the blood river. Well, I call it a blood river. You can call it or color it any color you want. You just follow the same kind of idea where you start with the light color. So I'm starting with permanent red because it's the lighter out of all the reds that I have. And I'm going to go over the whole thing. I'm coloring very lightly. I don't want to push hard or what's the word where you squash the paper? I can't think of the word. I don't want to make it so I can't get any more layers on top. So this layer here is going to be very light and with the lightest color out of the colors that I'm using. And now here with the Caran d'Ache Luminance Scarlet, it is the second darkest red that I'm using. And so I'm just going to go over some of the shadows. Kerby Rosanes is very good in the fact that he usually puts in where he wants the shadows. So you can just follow his lines, which most of the time I do. So I'm going to color in the longer shadows. So when you get to the darker color, so the Tuscan red, you're going to color in less of the shadow because the whole shadow isn't going to be completely dark. So this is just to add a separate color to it. You can add another red too if you wanted to, but I just felt like doing 3 reds. So you're just going to go over all of the shadows, and these bubbles here, where the waterfall hits the ground, you've just got to be careful that when you do the scarlet, you don't go all the way up to the top, because you want to leave a larger area white to make it look like it's bubbles and white. So this bit here that I'm doing, you don't want to go all the way up to the top, which I just did, but that's a different one. We won't mention that. So this one here, you just want to color where the lines are. You don't want to go too close to the top. See how I left a big gap there? So I'm going to leave that like that, and then blend some things together, and then add white gel pen to make some dots. So that's the whole concept with using this darker red. And this bit down here is exactly the same as what you've just done with the waterfally bubbly bit. You're just going to follow where Kerby has put all the shadows to make it look like the shadows in the water that's just trickling along. So you're going to fill in the whole area with the scarlet, and when you get to the Tuscan red, you won't be filling in the whole area, or try not to anyway. This waterfall bit, just follow what Kerby has done or make your own. You don't want to colour the whole thing in the Scarlet, and you don't want to colour the whole thing in the permanent red, and you don't want to colour the whole thing in the Tuscan red. And I also, the main reason why I use the Caran d'Ache Luminance Scarlet was because I wanted to go over all the little marks in the waterfall with the pencil, and Prismacolor would just lose its point basically as soon as I started. So I decided to use the Caran d'Ache because I wanted to go over all of those little points to add all those little, half circles and black marks that are in there, just to make it add some depth and definition to the coloring. I like to make my colorings try and appear realistic in a way, and so sometimes I spend a little bit extra just going over certain things. So right here, well, not here, but just a second ago, my timing is off. I was going over the little marks, and see right here, I'm going over all the little black marks just to try and add definition and just realism to the river. And now I've swapped over to the Tuscan red, which is the darkest red that I have in the Prismacolors anyway. I haven't really gone over the other colors. I think Caran Luminance have a like an aubergine crimson or something like that. Anyway, off the point. Just going to go over the darkest areas of all of this coloring. So try not to color the whole of the Scarlet because you want the different shades in the water bubbling here. So the whole idea is to have the darkest area down the bottom and where Kerby has drawn his shadows. And then you have another darker area, but not darkest. And then you have a lighter area. So you want to try and keep all three of those colors. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult and sometimes it's just too hard to do. So you just end up with all dark color and that's fine. But yeah, the whole idea here going along here is to just try and darken down the bottom, but keep the scarlet and the permanent red showing. See how as you're going along, when you're adding the dark, it starts to take life and start to look good. And that's why having the darks dark and the lights light is really important. So just keep going along and getting all the darks dark. And yeah, that's what you got to do. I got to admit, while colouring in this part of the water, I was actually thinking of Freddy Krueger's face. That's what it reminded me of, just the burnt skin and that. So I kind of got a little ick colouring it in, but it's water, it's water, it's water. It's not Freddy Krueger. And now I'm grabbing the Luminance Scarlet again just to go over and make, just in case I went too far with the Tuscan Red or not far enough with the Scarlet, I'm just going over and making sure I have a couple of different colors in there. So I'm moving the line up maybe just a little bit, or just going over it and blending the Tuscan Red into the Scarlet. That is the main reason why I start with light, go to dark, and then go back to light again, because the light one ends up blending everything together. And I decided that I wanted the water down here to be blended just a little bit more, so I thought I would, because I didn't want to use white because it would turn it pink, so I decided to grab my Caran d'Ache blender and blend some of it together, so the Tuscan Red into the Scarlet. I'm trying not to go too far into the permanent red because they will blend up and cover the permanent red, and I don't want the permanent red to disappear. Now, bubbling water is usually white, so like in an ocean or in a waterfall, the bubbles are white, and even in a blood water, the bubbles will be kind of pinkish white. So that's why I decided to use this Tule acrylic art, Tule acrylic paint pen white, just doing dotting motions over the top. So pretty much where I did the permanent red, and just do a couple of dots here and there in the Tuscan Red and the Scarlet. So just doing lots and lots of dots, just trying to make it seem bubbly and frothy. Now my Tuli art pen is running out again as usual. It doesn't last very long. So going down during the lines was a little bit hard. But this bit here, if you notice on waterfalls and things like that, when it falls down, there's always a really bright reflection at the top there, just when it falls down. So that's why I'm using the white paint pen to just do that reflection. And now I'm going to grab the Scarlet again because I just want to go over the Scarlet again because, like I say, I do a lot of layers. That's the main thing I do. I do a lot of layers and I try to do the little details. So just going to grab the Scarlet again and cover exactly what you covered previously with the Scarlet. And surprise, surprise, back to the Tuscan red. Just going to go over the dark again because going over it with the Scarlet and anything else that went over it with the blender, and that would have made the Tuscan red lose its darkness. And well, like I've said before, you need the darks dark, so it's just a constant battle with trying to keep the darks dark. So I'm just going over them again because I would have lost quite a bit of the dark when I used the other colors and the blender over the top. Now the bookshelf is a pretty simple thing to do in itself. You just pick whatever color you wanted. I wanted a wooden bookshelf, so that's why I've chosen the browns. So as I usually do most of the time, I start with the light and then work up to the dark and then go back to the light again. So I'm just going to do the whole thing, the whole bookcase in a layer of Prismacolor light umber. So as usual, following what I usually do, I'm now going to the mid-tone color, which is the Prismacolor dark brown, and I'm going to go over all the shadows. Now, with the bookshelf, this area here where I'm coloring is going to be in shadow because there's a shelf covering it, so it's going to be in shadow. And I'm going to darken it with the dark umber. But right now, I'm just going to go through all these shadows and then draw a line under the shelf, so make the line directly under the shelf a little bit darker, and then I will change to the Prismacolor dark umber. Now it's a little bit off camera here, but all I'm doing is doing a line under the bottom of the shelf to make it darker. You'll see what I'm doing in a second when I move down. So this is the dark umber and this is the darkest of the browns. So see, I'm just drawing the line there where the shelf is, and then in some of the areas under the shelf I'm going to add some of the dark umber just to make the shadows just a little bit darker. And I'm also going to see this bit here under the shelf is going to be dark, and I'm trying to add dimension to make the shelf look like it's a shelf. And across the edge here, the light isn't going to hit it on the right hand side because my light is coming from the left. So I'm just going down into these shadows as well where I did the dark brown. And now back to the lightest color, the light umber, and this is off camera again. I don't know what I did wrong here. Just blending the colors together so the light umber comes along and blends everything together again. And that's why, like I said before, I go light to dark to light. So just getting the second coat of the color on here, but I'm also blending the dark umber and that together. And I just wanted to add one little line of extreme darkness under the bookshelf, so that's why I decided to grab the black and just draw a line here where it is going to be the darkest, just to make it dark dark. And because I don't want the black to stay black, I'm going to go over it with the dark umber as well, which is the darkest brown, and just going over all the shadows down at the back of the bookshelf with the dark umber, just to add some more depth to the bookshelf, and making sure that I go over most of the black because I don't want it to be black, I want it to be brown black. And also on the front of the bookshelf shelves, like right here, Kerby has done lines, and so, you know, wood has lines, so I decided to do it, color in the lines with the dark umber. And now to the books. I decided to do them colorful. I just did the one book or the two books first just to see if I liked the color that I picked. So I picked cerulean blue for one of them. I don't think I really liked the cerulean blue, so I did change it up to a different blue as well. But yeah, I'm just coloring in one book with the cerulean blue, and then I'll get a darker blue to do the shadows on the side of the book. Now this is me being anal. I like to do the realism, so I'm going to do the shadows on the edge of the book. So I'm doing a couple of the marks that are on the, the bit of the book that shows, but I'm also doing these shadows that are going to be on each side of the book, and then blending them together again with the cerulean blue. Just doing the exact same thing here where I color the book in, and then I get the sleeve, the jacket. No, it's not the jacket. It's I can't words. It's early morning. I can't think of the words. So I'm just doing the shadows here on the edge of the book, and also some of the marks on the side of the book, the edge of the book, the and I don't know, the book. So I'm just doing the shadows and that, and then I'll get the cerulean blue again and blend it all together. But I want the shadows in there because otherwise it will look flat. And I'm doing the exact same thing here with the Luminance Scarlet. I'm just seeing if I like the red color of the book, and well, if I don't, I can just erase it. So, but I didn't mind it, so I color in with the lighter color, and then I'm going to get the Tuscan red and do the shadows and some of the lines on the book. And so that is what I end up doing with all of the books. And now that I've figured out what I want to do with the books, I get the one color and then I go through and do all the same color of the books. So I go through and do about 10 or 15 manganese violet books, just doing a light layer. Most of the time when I start, the first layer is always light, and then as you get darker, it starts to get a little heavier most of the time. And now I'm moving on to the green books, the spring green. I wanted to have more green books in the actual river because red and green are complementary, so the green books will stand out more so than any of the other colors. So that's why I do a few more green books in the actual river. But I'm just going along and doing the same thing I just did with the purple, but with the green, coloring whatever books. So pick whatever books you want. I had no water, no nothing. I just tried to put some complementary colors together. I decided I like this Luminance chrysocolla blue. You have no idea how hard it was to read that on the actual pencil, because luminants are a little bit difficult to read, and as you get older, your eyesight gets a little worse. And so I actually had two glasses on trying to read because the letters were so smushed together, and because I've never heard of it before. So I've heard of quinacridone, I've heard of phthalo, I've heard of permanent red, all those ones, but I've never heard of a chrysocolla, and I'm still, right now, I'm not 100% sure I spelt that right, but it is what it is. And if you have luminance and you see something that looks similar to that, that's the blue that I used. Anyway, rant over. Just doing, I preferred this blue to the cerulean blue, so I go along and do all the books that I want blue, chrysocolla blue. And now with the Prismacolor dark green, I am going to go over all the ones that I did with the Luminance spring green, and I'm just going to go over where the shadows on the books will be and where I think they'll be. So I'm basing it on the fact that my light is coming from the top left. And yeah, just going to go over where all the shadows are and on the edges of all the books where they're touching another book. And I also go along and do some of the little lines that are on the jackets of the books there on the spine. The spine, that's the word I was looking for. Spine. Oh my God. I need another Coke, and then I might think of another word that I couldn't remember before. The spine. I can't believe I couldn't remember that. Yeah, just going over on some of the lines on the spine of the book and the edges of the book where they're touching another book, and a little bit on the bottom of some of them. Now just grabbing the Prisma Tuscan Red and doing the exact same, what I did with the dark green, going along and drawing on the spine of the book. And yes, I'm going to say that word as many times as I can so I remember it. And doing the edges of all the books. See the ones that I've already done, it kind of looks more defined and a little bit more, well, realistic, and that's what I like. So if you don't want to go around and do all this, because it does add like an hour to the coloring, then you don't have to do it. I just enjoy making things look the best that I can. And now I'm using the Luminance quinacridone purple, going around and doing the shadows on all the light purple books, exact same as what I've just done. And now another layer on all the books. I'm going to go over with the lightest color, or the original color that I used on them, and blend the light and the dark together and kind of make a little bit smush together. So this makes the color more vibrant, so you can tell the ones that I have done the second layer on, because they just look a little bit more vibrant and blended, and that's the look that I like. And now I'm just going to go ahead and grab the Prismacolor Sunburst Yellow and go over all the yellows again, and I will do the same with the orange and the red and the chrysocolla purple. I know it may seem like a waste of time going, doing so many layers and constantly going over things and then fixing things up. But if you compare this picture of the books to the picture of the books where you just have the one or the two layers, it just looks so much better. And then when I go next, I will grab the black, because I wanted it just a little bit darker between some of the books. So I get the Prismacolor black and draw a line, only a small line, right next to all the books, just to make it a little bit darker. And so this is where I grab the Prismacolor black and I decide to draw the line, just one small little line, trying not to go too much over any of the dark purple or any other colors that I used, just to get definition in between the books, because right in between the books there is going to be a shadow, and I just wanted to really define that shadow. And I know they're just books, but they are a big part of this colouring. So yeah. And now onto the pages of the books. You would think pages would be white, but they're not. They're like teeth, I suppose you could say. So that's why I decided to start building up with the cool greys. Why did I choose cool grey? Because I know it sounds stupid, but I really do prefer the cool grey over the warm grey. It just has a nicer blue tint to it. I'm not a huge fan of the warm grey, that's why I don't use it, even though I probably should in some of them, in some of my colorings, but I just really prefer the cool greys. So just going over doing a full layer of the cool grey on all of the paper, and then I'll build up a little bit with 50% cool grey. And now onto the 50% cool grey. You don't want to do too much of this, you just want to do it where the shadows are. Now in this main body of the colouring, I forgot to do the shadows in the middle of the book. So if you're doing it right now, go ahead and use the 50% cool grey to do a shadow in the middle of the book where the pages are open up and you've got the spine bit in the middle. And sometimes with Kerby Rosanes books, I do miss things. I'm not quite sure what they are, so I have to sit there and think about it. But then I did realize that this bit here was supposed to be water and another couple of bits was supposed to be water, even though logically it didn't make sense to me. But I think that's what it's supposed to be, so I decided to do it water. There are a couple of little extra bits there. And just building up the layers of that same water the way I did with the waterfall. So the permanent red, the scarlet, and then the Tuscan red. And now onto the rocks. Now I could have done these any color I wanted, but I decided that grey rocks would look best in this. So as usual, I start with the lightest one and I'm using cool grey. So I grab the 20% cool grey and cover the whole rock. And then I will build up with the 50% cool grey and go on from there. So just make sure you cover the whole rock with the 20% cool grey. Now this one here is 50% cool grey, and you don't want to cover the whole rock, you just want to do the shadows. So you're going to do most of the shadows, or all of the shadows with the 50% cool grey, and then you're going to go on to 70% cool grey after that, which won't do all the shadows, it will just do the darkest of the shadows. So just build up your 50% cool grey on all of the rocks. Now this is the 70% cool grey. This is for the darkest of the dark shadows, so mainly down the bottom and where the sun won't be touching the rock. So don't do the whole thing in the dark shadows. And now this is the darkest of the dark. So this is only going to be a little bit of the rocks. This is the 90% cool grey. It's going to be the darkest of the darkest shadow, so darker than the previous ones. And it's only going to be a little bit on all of the rocks. And I do go through with this 90% cool grey and just add some dots onto the rocks because rocks aren't smooth and perfect. So I add some dots and then I'm going to blend those dots around to make them look kind of like holes or whatever with the 20% cool grey in a minute. I'm grabbing the 20% cool grey and I'm going to blend the dots that I just did. So see how they're smushing together to make kind of like little divots or holes or whatever in the rock. And I'm also blending with this 20% cool grey, I'm blending all the darks into the light to make it a smooth transition. And as usual, I just want the very bottom of it to be dark, so that the darkest of the darkest of the darkest shadow I want there. So I grab the black and just draw a line under all the rocks just to make the shadow more defined. And then I realized I forgot the little ship there, and I decided to do it green because, well, what's the complementary of red? Green. So I use green, and then I will use a dark green to do the shadows to give it a little bit of definition. So just going over with the dark green, the very bottom of the spring green that I just used. It's a little bit difficult because it's so small and because Prismacolors are so soft, but yeah, just do your best. And now I've got the Tuscan red again, just want to go over because I may have rubbed off or whatever may have happened to the darkness on all of the blood river. So I just go through and fix up what I think isn't dark enough. And as usual, because the hand's been rubbing and because you've been colouring, you lose your white. So I go back over with the white on the river, just trying to make the bubbles in that become more prominent. And then because I'm me, I decided to add at the end some blood onto the rocks because it was bothering me that it didn't look realistic enough, all these rocks and these books, and they didn't have any blood on it from the river. So I used Tuscan Red to do just whatever, random dots everywhere, and then I'm going to blend it with the Caran d'Ache blender just to smudge it a little bit, and then I go over it again with the Tuscan Red because it loses its darkness. So that is kind of what I was thinking as I was coloring this in. Sometimes when the camera is off, I do extra layers with the exact same colors that I've used. I just think it would be boring to constantly show going over and over and over the things that I've done. So this is where I'm going over with the Tuscan Red again, just to darken it up again, because I've blended it with the blender and I want to have a little bit of shadow in there as well. And that is it. And thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy, and I'll see you next time. Bye.